My mom wanted us to come home for the New Year holiday, and my husband suddenly told me about it during our first holiday season as a married couple. I told him I wanted to visit my family too, but he refused. To make things worse, his mother started criticizing me, saying I wasn't being a good wife and calling me a bad daughter-in-law. No matter how much I tried to talk things through, my husband always sided with his mom. I was fed up and decided I needed to take steps to cut ties with my in-laws for good. My name is Abby, and I'm 28 years old. I married Malcolm, my boyfriend of 2 years. Our newlywed life was going well. Both of us work full-time, so we shared the housework, and I made sure my husband did his part. My job and personal life were fulfilling, and I was even starting to think about having a baby once things settled down. 1 month after we got married, my in-laws invited me over. I thought it would be a good chance to get closer to my mother-in-law, so I was happy to go. However, when I arrived at their house, things took an unexpected turn. 1 month after we got married, my in-laws invited me over. I thought it would be a good chance to get closer to my mother-in-law, so I was happy to go. However, when I arrived at their house, things took an unexpected turn. As soon as my husband and I sat down in the living room, my mother-in-law immediately told me, "Excuse me, Abby, why are you sitting there so leisurely? Please make me some tea." I was caught off guard and apologized. I thought I would be treated as a guest, but instead, it felt like I was being treated like a servant. She complained about how I was making the tea, criticizing how long I took, and saying it was common sense to warm the cup first. I was getting frustrated, especially since my husband and father-in-law didn't say anything to help. If she had so many complaints, why didn't she just make the tea herself? Then, another day, I was about to clean my house when my mother-in-law suddenly called me. I rushed over with my husband, and when I arrived, she was already upset. She asked, "Why didn't you bring any gifts? Isn't it common to bring a gift when visiting your in-laws?" She scolded me without even asking how I was. I explained I hadn't planned to go out that day, but she didn't care and went on calling me a bad daughter-in-law. Again, my husband and father-in-law didn't offer me any support. I didn't expect my husband or father-in-law to defend me, but I just wanted someone to stop my mother-in-law from being unreasonable. After she scolded me, I whispered to my husband, "Hey Malcolm, can you say something to your mom?" It was a last-minute decision to come today, so I couldn't have prepared a gift. But my husband just sighed and said, "Don't you think you should always have a gift ready, just in case you have to visit?" I agree with my mom on this. I couldn't believe it. Why was he siding with her? His response only made me feel worse. In the days that followed, I started to feel more frustrated with both my husband and mother-in-law. Every time I visited, they would impose their traditions on me. They expected me to do all the chores when I visited, put my husband and his parents first, and spend every New Year's at his parents' house. It felt like their thinking was so old-fashioned, and I started to dread visiting them. On our first New Year's holiday after we got married, my husband suddenly told me we were expected to spend it at his parents' house. I was furious and asked, "When will I be able to visit my family?" He responded, "It might be tough this time. We couldn't decide after New Year's." That made no sense. We had agreed to visit both families equally when we got married. We had rented an apartment halfway between both our parents' homes so we could visit them equally. But so far, we had only visited my family once, and his 6 times. This time, my husband wanted to stay at his parents' house the entire holiday, from the end of work until work started again. There was no way I was going to accept that. I demanded, "At least before work starts again, I want to visit my family." When I called my mother-in-law to ask, the first thing she said was, "Abby, you're in charge of the special New Year's dinner." I told my mother-in-law that I would definitely visit my family before work started, but she didn't take it well. She raised her voice and said, "What's with this? You're prioritizing your own family over ours. You don't have the right attitude as a daughter-in-law." She lectured me for an hour, and I was exhausted afterward. When I told my husband about it, he just said, "Mom just wants you to be a good wife. She always says she wants you to feed into our family. His response only made me feel drained, and his attitude didn't help. In the end, we spent the entire New Year's holiday at my in-laws' place. My mother-in-law said, "It's your first New Year since you got married, so prioritize them." So, I reluctantly agreed. While we were there, I worked like a maid, cooking, cleaning, doing laundry, and taking out the trash. I ended up doing everything on my own. When I asked my husband for help, he scolded me, saying, "This is the wife's job. Malcolm works hard, so he needs to rest during the holiday. You're being inconsiderate." I didn't argue back, even though I wanted to, because I didn't want to make a fuss in our first year of marriage. At the end of the holiday, I hadn't seen my family at all. My husband casually said, "I'm tired, I'll stay home." So I went to visit my family alone. That's probably when I started losing trust in him. I was upset not just with my mother-in-law but also with my husband, who never took me seriously when I tried to talk to him. After the new year, things didn't improve. When I stopped visiting my in-laws' house, my mother-in-law started calling me every day. There would already be 10 missed calls. When I woke up in the morning, I thought something was wrong. So I called her back, only to have her yell at me. "So, you're finally awake. You're not being responsible as a wife. You should get up at 5 a.m. and make Malcolm a nutritious meal every day." If I got home late from work, she would scold me terribly. I heard from Malcolm that it's outrageous for a woman to stay late at work. He said a wife who doesn't come home before her husband is the worst and that I should prioritize my home. But I actually earn more than him and contribute more to our living expenses. I almost mentioned it many times, but I held it in and just brushed it off with it. Yeah. Over time, I stopped answering calls from my mother-in-law and deleted her voicemails without listening to them. This went on for about a year. Then, the difficult time of year came again. Sure enough, my husband started pestering me, saying, "Mom says you should come home for the New Year's holiday." This time, I firmly told him, "I'm not going this year. I can't bear it anymore. I'm not a housekeeper." My husband, annoyed by my words, grumbled, "Abby, don't upset my mom. You married me, so at least be considerate of my family." I replied, "Excuse me, you never even make the effort with my family. Besides, I've been working really hard to build a good relationship with your mom." He replied, "That's why my mom is always mad. You need to try harder." That's when he dropped the final bomb. "Mom is mad because you're a failure. You get that?" At that moment, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I snapped, "A failure? It's my fault. I've been putting up with all of this, putting your family first for your sake." Taking a deep breath, I looked my husband in the eye and said, "I'm cutting ties with your family. I'm never seeing your father and mother again." For a moment, my husband seemed surprised, but then he realized there was nothing more he could say. Surprisingly, he gave in and said, all right, I get it. Totally fine. I'll go home alone for the holidays." Our relationship became a bit strained after that, and we spoke less at home. But honestly, I didn't care. I was just happy to spend the New Year's holiday with my family for the first time in a while. When I arrived at my parents' house, my mom asked, "Abby, is everything okay with Malcolm's family?" I can't help but worry. I reassured her, "I'm fine, ma'am." I made it clear to him that I won't be involved anymore. My mom still looked a bit worried, but I could tell she was just concerned about my relationship with my husband's family. After spending some time at home with my child and leaving the housework to my mom, I was relaxing when the doorbell suddenly rang. I quickly went to answer it and was shocked to find my husband standing there. He looked exhausted. I invited him in, but he didn't say anything. Growing impatient, I asked, "What's going on? Weren't you supposed to be at your parents' house today?" He finally spoke, saying, "Mom asked me to bring you." Again, how relentless can my mother-in-law be? I thought, feeling frustrated, but I stood my ground. "Didn't I tell you I'm not going to your parents' house again?" I said. "I was cutting ties with them, and you agreed?" Malcolm responded, "Yeah, but Mom's angry. She says it's unthinkable for a daughter-in-law not to visit her in-laws." "I don't care," I said, fed up. I can't handle your mother's harassment anymore, and I'm tired of your father's indifference too. I don't plan on seeing them again. My husband then tried to plead. That's a problem. Like Mom said, Abby, you married into this family. Please consider my position. I was furious. Your position? What are you talking about? What century are you living in? I shouted. I didn't get married to be your parents' housekeeper. I don't want anything to do with in-laws who harass me, and a husband who doesn't stand up for me. I had never spoken to him so strongly before, and I could see it made him flinch, but it wasn't enough to change things. If you keep siding with your mother, I'll divorce you, I said. Divorce? You're joking, right? He asked, looking shocked. I'm serious, I replied. I can't live like this, being mistreated just because I'm your wife, living with a husband who won't help me and just listens to his mother. I'd be far better off single. When he realized I was serious, his face turned pale. Just then, his phone rang. When he looked at the screen, he looked startled. I knew it was his mother calling. He answered the phone, and I could hear her yelling from where I was standing. Losing patience with him, I snatched the phone from his hand. Hello, mother-in-law, it's me, I said. No matter how much you try to use my husband, I won't be coming over anymore. What? You're my daughter-in-law, aren't you? I won't accept that, she shot back. I fired back just as strongly. Daughter-in-law, are you living in the past? It's the 21st century. She responded, you're such an insolent bride. You should at least show up on special occasions. I told my mother-in-law, there's no way I'm going to visit, whether it's a special occasion or not. If you have anything more to say, I'll divorce him. She responded, divorce Malcolm? Are you planning to disgrace him? Then let's divorce and remarry under my surname. Fine with you. I was furious. That's ridiculous. I won't allow that. Do whatever you want, but I won't deal with you guys ever again. Goodbye. I hung up the phone and turned to face my husband. This is the deal. Like I said before, if you keep siding with your mother, we'll divorce. But if you can understand my point of view and treat me as an equal, I'll let this go. After a moment of silence, he finally said, I understand. I choose you, Abby. My husband lowered his head for a while, but then decided he wanted to work on our relationship. Since then, I stopped visiting my in-laws, and my mother-in-law stopped contacting us. Maybe my husband was reflecting on his past actions, but now he regularly visits my parents. They don't treat him like a servant. They love him like their own son. I'm sure we'll face challenges in the future, but I want to face them with my husband, who chose me, and work through each day together.